thank you all for coming tonight. We're doing something a little bit different to kick off basically the school year for us. And one of the things that we've always had was a State of the District address, but we would always do it up at the unit office, and it was around February. And so Dr. Johnson did a kind of smaller version, but he wanted to make sure there was a nice public version where people had the opportunity to see what's been going on in the district. Dr. Johnson, if you all haven't met him or haven't met him out there, he has been our superintendent now for 2 years. It seems like it's been a longer process because we started the search process so early, but you know, he certainly impressed us in his interview, and the first year for us as a board has just been absolutely awesome with him. He's friendly but holds people accountable. He really gets after even the smallest details. As he says, he never sweeps anything under the rug. Just, again, small attention to details. I'm not going to say everything because I was going to preview what he said, but he lovely put it in his PowerPoint thing, so you know where we're going there. But just an example, I don't know if it's in your speech, but with the way the market's been lately, he dug into all our savings accounts and realized by moving money around. In the first year he was here, he basically netted us about $300,000 just by being prudent with our financial decisions and getting after finding investment accounts that would actually stretch our money even further. So those are things that you just don't see on a day-to-day that Dr. Johnson does. And another thing that I've learned is our previous superintendent, Mr. Alan Boucher, is now the acting superintendent of Rocky. And when talking to him, I'm like, how's it going? He's like, it's weird, I have a whole staff of people that do things and I'm kind of lost. And he was so used to doing everything. And what's unique about this district is people don't understand. We have great administrators, we have great teachers, but a lot of that work that falls on a big district, he does it all. Discipline, everything. And so no one sees the true gamut of what his day truly looks like. And no day is ever the same. So we're looking forward to his remarks here. And the last one I'll say is, you know, the thing I really like about Carl is he always has his eye on the horizon. You know, not only what's going to impact us in the here and now, but what's going to impact us 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. And having someone who has that forethought is what's going to continue to make this district very, very successful. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Carl Johnson.
Thanks for the kind words, Reese. Happening, some of the things that we're looking forward to, and this I do want to actually show you so you can look at something far more attractive than me, show you a few things that are happening in the district. So several of the things that we'll talk about tonight, you got a chance to see firsthand. We'll start tonight talking about our students. I think as every educator should, we should start with our students and keep that at the front of what we do. As long as we keep that student-centered approach all the way from the board to the teachers, from the offices to the buses, from the cafeteria to the superintendent, I think that's going to make a positive difference not only in our students' lives but also our own. Our students. You could talk about our students and really look at 4 R's. They're resilient, they're reliable, they're remarkable. And because of the efforts of the school district and the parents, they are certainly ready. They've achieved so much over the past year, and they're off to a great start again already. Time and again, they show they're resilient and they can overcome obstacles. I think the past 3 years, we've seen that more so than we ever have in history before. They're community oriented. They're always accomplishing more when they're not in school. They're doing great things outside of these walls and outside of the classrooms. Within the prospectus, you'll find a tremendous amount of information on what our students accomplished last year. When I reached out to the principals in the summertime and said, start compiling the list, I want to know what happened, that's literally why you have a handout that's that thick, because of the great things that the kids have done. So I think that's certainly worth the extra paper, that's for sure. We always want to make sure we keep a two-pronged approach at Sherrard. Celebrate your successes, but work to improve, because yesterday's best might not be good enough today. Our students are ready. We're proud to have a district that's preparing students for a variety of opportunities, everything from college to trades. We're giving kids a chance to succeed, no matter what they choose. I think we should also be, again, proud of our students for what they accomplish outside of the classroom and our extracurriculars and our co-curriculars. take a look at the accomplishments in there, the agricultural programs alone. They're representative of the commitment that the community has to the district that then in turn honors the roots of the district. And our two teachers, Mr. Hasty and Mr. Hammes, I feel have made this into one of the premier programs in the state of Illinois. Also, we retained the All-Sport Conference Championship for the second year in a row for athletics. And when I was selected to serve this district, that was not just athletics, but extracurriculars in general were going to be a focus, because I always had a saying when I was a high school principal that said, don't be an 8 to 3 student, because that's basically what it was. And Sherrard's 7:30 to 2:30 doesn't roll off the tongue quite as nicely, so I just stuck with the don't be an 8 to 3 student, and trust me, the kids and parents get it right away. But they're always doing something more. Our staff. A good way to look at our staff is the heartbeat of the district. You can see it every day. And I'm going to start out with a few thoughts from first-year staff members and even some plans from those who are retiring at the end of the year. Kayla, our communications director, asked some new teachers and some retirees, what are you most looking forward to? Kyle Ellison said, something I'm looking forward to is being able to kickstart the Check and Connect program, where I'll be able to build one-on-one connections with students and be able to see the progress those students make from the beginning to the end of the school year. Russell Jenkins, retiree, said, I'm looking forward to attending more events at Sherrard that are not athletic driven. And if you've been to a Sherrard or one all athletic event in the last 40 years, you've seen Russell. He's definitely been a standby for us. Jackie Hammerling says, I always look forward to graduation. Watching the kids walk across the stage is bittersweet. I always miss them when they go, but to see them achieve the goal of graduation and to hear the stories of all they plan to do after, it doesn't get any better. Patty Gibbs said, becoming a part of the Matherville family, meeting all of my students and their families, and finding a way to further enrich their lives, establishing strong and positive relationships with all of the teachers and staff, and sowing seeds of innovation and creativity to foster encouragement and betterment to one another and to our community. And finally, Kim McCray, I'm just going to try to enjoy my last year with my coworkers and the camaraderie that goes with being a part of the Sherrard world. I've had 31 amazing years of being a part of such a great school district and have had the privilege to teach and later work with some outstanding people. Thank you for a beautiful journey. One other thing I'm looking forward to. Somewhere down the line, the district will find something to name after me when I'm gone. Too funny. Now, Kim was brave to put that in there because she knows my sense of humor, so it's open game. You've all heard it. Our staff is talented, dedicated, and hardworking. I don't think anybody can deny that. We're fortunate to have some of the most talented staff and faculty in the nation. Our teachers consistently impress me with their talents, dedication, and devotion to their students. Honestly, not a single day goes by where I'm not blown away by the positive aspects I'm able to see in our classrooms. Our paraprofessionals add such support for our students and families that I cannot sing their praises enough. Our transportation staff is second to none. Our drivers and mechanics do not just do their jobs, they truly care for your students. Our cafeteria staff does not just cook and serve. They take the time to truly make sure your students are getting what they need. And this is the right time for a guy my size to say something like they cook with love. It's okay to laugh. We have an incredible IT staff, both instructional and behind the scenes, making sure things move smoothly. Our facilities look great because of the dedication shown by our maintenance and custodial staff, always doing more than what is asked. Our office staff and administrators deserve the Golden Glove Award for making sure they catch everything that comes their way in an ever-changing and challenging environment. Facilities, which for the last couple of years and for the next couple of years will probably mean construction. It's a fun, demanding topic, it's challenging, it's rewarding, and it's a necessity in order to have what I feel our communities deserve, an effective, attractive district that we can all be proud of. If we grow, this needs to be a continual focal point. I encourage everyone to visit the schools when possible to see what has happened. The short video, just literally the tip of the iceberg. wait till you actually get to step inside that new gym at Sherrard Grade School. It is going to be something. I was a little upset that they moved the crane because I had any kid or younger person that I would see at the quick shop in the morning grabbing coffee, I'd be like, we're just gonna go ahead and build around that crane. We're gonna leave it in the gym, and, you know, kind of like you see a tree growing through a deck. And they'd look at me like, okay, but then they moved it and ruined my joke, so that was fine. You'll read in the prospectus, the district is nearing the end of our 3-year, $14 million construction project. I should probably say projects, plural. I'll dig into the finances of that a little more deeply in a few minutes, but take a look at what we've accomplished over the last 15 months. First up, Winola Grade School, near and dear to my heart. The kids always ask me, you know, because I walk in, do a couple laps, talk to people, and then I inevitably end up at the pictures of the graduates, because that's where the Winola High School pictures ended up. I got a call a couple weeks ago, some of you probably heard this story, from a guy that was actually at my parents' wedding. And my dad passed away 21 years ago, and he said, hey, we're having our 60th class reunion. If you want to come, you know, be a representative of the district, or, you know, just come and hang out. I'm sure people would like to see you. So it was pretty funny that, you know, they'd walk in, they'd be like, you know, do you know who this is? And it'd automatically be like, you know, that's a Johnson. So I think that's when it finally set in, when people tell me I sound or look like my brothers. I guess that's the dead giveaway. But Winola, very near and dear to my heart after growing up in Viola. We saw a complete HVAC replacement. And remember, Winola was one of those schools that was built in the late 70s when it was like, air conditioning's cool. What do you need windows for? Well, when air conditioning doesn't work, it's a pretty good idea too. But a lot of gold medals to the Winola staff for sticking it out through the years with an HVAC system that probably wasn't designed to begin very well in the first place. But now, modern, actually designed for the building. So as soon as we get the software to communicate appropriately, I'm thinking we can make some ice cubes in those rooms in the summertime. It was finished, again, there's where the gold medal comes in. It was finished 1 year later than anticipated because, get ready for it, supply chain issues with the units. Sherrard Grade School, you had an opportunity to see the big construction project, the classrooms and the gym that are going on the north side and the back there. But it also had windows, a significant amount of the roofing was replaced, and then there were also some HVAC updates that were on the existing north end of that building. So Sherrard Grade School is not just going to be bigger, it's going to be better. Matherville, again, a complete HVAC replacement that ran behind schedule again because of supply chain issues last year. But they were able to get it in and then finally get the software communicating appropriately to control everything. I made reference to Mr. Schillinger when I walked in for backpack night. It was exactly 20 degrees cooler on the sidewalk out front than it was at that time last year. And then I walked inside and it was like a paradise for a guy my size. It's like, this is great. So and we went from, you know, 100 to 80 outside, and then it felt like it was about 62 inside. So I was a happy boy that night. Also, a new roof on the gym, and then window replacements all around. Sherrard Junior Senior High School. If you haven't had a chance to see the science rooms, they're a sight to behold. I went to high school here. I remember what they looked like. They do not look like that now. It is really something. State of the art, and then they're with an office space in between for chemical storage. It's just really something. So if you've not had a chance to look at that sometime, let me know and we'll make sure you can see that. The more obvious things, the lockers were finished approximately September of last year. The new flooring, the color and the carpet in the hallways is phenomenal. Massive roofing project. There's very, very few areas on this building, the high school and junior high, that still don't need replacing. We literally just have one more spot left. And then I think we're set for at least probably 10 to 15 years throughout the district. So in a very good spot with that. We had the Gym 2 refresh. When you walked in there at this time last year, it was amazing. The floor was new, the paint job and the walls was new. So it was really something to walk into and see the transformation. New greenhouse, state-of-the-art greenhouse. If you've not had a chance to see that, perhaps you were at the opening, the grand opening ribbon cutting for that. is really something to see. To follow up construction, obviously, we need to talk about how do we pay for that exactly? This is going to be a little bit of a preview of the audit. Lindsay Adams, our business manager, and I, we already know what is coming with the audit. In the state of Illinois, very little gets by. We are so heavily regulated and audited in terms of what happens with the money. It's really something to see. I would not invite you to try it, but when the auditors descend on our office, that's the term I use, there's literally close to a dozen of them sitting in the boardroom going through everything. And it is something to see, but they've already done that. We don't have the audit report yet, but just simply based on what they've asked for, we've got a very good feeling for what the outlook is. Our financial scores have been exceptionally strong, as you can see in there, and that's something that we certainly expect to continue. The December levy of this last year, just like property taxes, you're always a year in arrears, reflected another drop in rates. That was the 6th time in 7 years, and then over the course of the past 7 years, it has dropped 34 cents overall. We are by far the lowest in the area. Big way that this was paid for was bonding. So I referenced earlier looking for mortgage construction money and how painful that is right now. That was the complete opposite of what happened when the district borrowed bonds to be able to do all of these projects. They were historical rock bottom rates, and the board was able to borrow very, very smartly. They actually were able to borrow bonds and pay off old ones that were significantly higher interest and roll them into a new payment, saving literally 6 figures when we start talking about that. Coupled together with the grants that I'll talk in a little bit, it allowed the board to dream big and really put some things together. These are the grants that I was talking about. We refer to them as the ESSER grants, or a lot of people say COVID money. This was essentially support from the federal government. The first one that came out was ESSER 1 up there. It was just over $190,000. ESSER 2 was $741. And then finally, the big one, the rescue plan that we refer to as ESSER 3, was about $1.74 million. So again, a significant amount of cash that was coming in from the federal government. The thing about it is, when all of those funds were coming in, we had a school board that was very much engaged in how do we take one-time funds and make sure that we're paying one-time expenses. So there were some ideas that, well, you could reduce class sizes, you could hire teachers, you could hire paraprofessionals, you could add positions. That's fine, but those are recurring costs. So I think we could all argue that a smaller classroom size is good for kids, but eventually when that money runs out, what do? It's unsustainable. So in the wisdom of the federal government, no tongue in cheek, this was actually a good thing. They allowed that money to be used for things like construction. So all those HVAC projects that we talked about, those window projects, that was essentially paid for with the ESSER grant money. What was the impact? Last year, we received back about $104,000 for ESSER 2 reimbursements that were actually spent during FY22, and then the remaining funds are rolled into the last year's grant for $183,000. Mr. Fullerlove and I had this conversation this afternoon. While this money was great from a standpoint of what it could do for the district and what it can do for our kids and our families, the problem is it is an accounting nightmare, because if you don't spend it by X date, it rolls over, and then if you stick around for the budget presentation tonight, you'll see that you can make the bottom line work out perfectly over the course of 3 years, but when you start looking at a year-to-year budget, okay, well, we paid for all that, but we didn't get reimbursed for July, so then you look at last year's budget and there's a negative balance, but technically there's not a negative balance because the money is there now. I was not an accounting major, so I've had to work very hard at it and make sure that I paid very close attention. A couple of the things that we did do with ESSER 2, we did cover nurses' salaries for an additional year. Some of the things that we added that are permanent, if you will, all of the upfront costs. The TransFinder software for our buses that seem to work very, very smoothly. This year, if you have kids that ride the bus, please make sure that you're taking advantage of that, the stop finder, so that you can literally tell you if you have to leave for work, you can check your app and talk to the kids and say, hey, the bus is 4 or 5 minutes away, so make sure that you're there. That was significantly nicer, I think, than the way my mother handled it. But, summer school was paid for, and we're also in the process of making sure we have 240 new student desks for the high school. ESSER 3 has mostly been used for HVAC replacements, the windows and ventilation upgrades at the elementary buildings. So for example, we had $423,000 at Winola, just under $700,000 at Matherville, and then another $213,000 for new windows at both Matherville and Sherrard. So when you start looking at what these grants can pay for, out of the $14 million, you can really have, again, a value-added situation. We have a new Tier 3 room at the high school. We've talked about this a few times. This is an opportunity for kids who don't have success in a regular classroom or in a larger setting to be able to try to have a little bit of success so that we can make sure that we're keeping our dropout rate as close to zero as we can. Okay? If you historically look at dropout rates, they're much lower than they were 25 years ago, significantly lower than they were 40 years ago. However, until we can get to zero, we need to keep trying to see what can we do to make sure every kid has what they need to be successful. Talk a little bit about the future. We'll start with curriculum, some of the things that we've done in advance of this year. Steve Miller is our new curriculum coordinator. He's been phenomenal. He's one of those guys you can just wind him up and let him go, and he does amazing things. He gets along with people, and curriculum is one of those positions where you could hire somebody that's a genius. They have authored 4 books, and they come in and they can't talk to anybody, or they talk to people in such a way that it's like, I'll tell you what you need to do. Well, as an administrator and approaching my 30th year, I can tell you how well that works with teachers. Okay. Work together, not order, significantly better. Steve was a great teacher. He's been a great instructional technology leader, and he's following through with that path of success as a curriculum coordinator. We're going to take curriculum matters off of the front line for the elementary principals. We want to make sure that by the time an idea gets to them, that there's an actual direction and goal. Steve can be that person that's talking to the instructional leaders within the classrooms, so that the administrators within the building can sit down with Steve and those people and say, yes, this makes perfect sense. They've already met with all the grade level teams during second semester. We're talking about making sure that all curriculums have the appropriate scope and sequence. Making sure that all grade levels are using appropriate materials. SEL, social emotional learning. This is a topic that I think is extremely hot right now in terms of what do kids need. This goes far beyond what an old timer like me would consider emotional support. This is literally not just the emotional support piece. This is also teaching kids how to interact better, how to interact appropriately and make sure that they're getting along with their peers so that emotional health is significantly stronger throughout the district. NWEA MAP, the measurements of academic progress, those are our internal tests. So when we see what test is the state of Illinois giving to measure growth with students or any kind of an attainment with students, that can change, that can kind of flutter in the wind a little bit. MAP is very consistent. It's normed across the nation. Way more schools use it than what we use here for state tests in Illinois, and you can actually start to get some longitudinal data that'll help you with growth. And you can break it down farther and see exactly why. So a kid just doesn't walk in and a teacher says to the parent, well, your son's not very good at reading. No, they can break it down farther and say, here are some of the skill sets. I mean, it would be like me walking into the gym. Carl's not very good at basketball. Well, why? Well, he can't dribble, he can't jump, and he can't run. So if you would work on those 3 skills, he would probably be good at basketball. You don't like that analogy? But again, it breaks it down into what exactly does a kid have to be able to do, where is he successful, where do they need to improve. MAP Accelerator. This is literally an add-on that we have purchased for the MAP program to help kids build the skills that they need. It's literally impossible to ask a teacher to differentiate learning enough to do everything for every kid in the classroom. I know that sounds great on paper, but realistically in practice, it doesn't work very well. You know, I mean, sometimes it's, you know, a little bit like a parent. You can't be pulled in 4 different directions and be successful in all of them without a little bit of help. This is exactly what that'll do for the teachers. What do we want to do in the future? The K-6 content area, we're going to make sure that we have a solid Tier 1 in ELA, English Language Arts. When we talk about tiers, just think of it as a pyramid. Tier 1's the bottom. That's full classroom. Tier 2 is probably about 15%, and then you get up top with Tier 3, that's under 5% of the kids. So if we can make sure that we have the instruction levels at the right and appropriate pace for all kids, and making sure that we're hitting, getting 85% of the kids exactly what they need, it's much easier to focus on that 15% or under that need extra help. Curriculum alignment is something that's going to continue. And when we talk about curriculum alignment, I think it's important to talk about the fact that each teacher is their own unique entity. However, we want to make sure that everyone is teaching appropriate skill levels, appropriate grade levels, and making sure that we're doing the same things, for example, at Sherrard, that's happening at Winola, so all kids have the same opportunities. And I saved not the bad news, but the things to pay attention to, save that for the end. What are some of the things that we need to pay attention to in our district? Most of these are not just our district, by the way. One of the biggest things are vacancies. Sherrard was selected for a pilot program in the state of Illinois for a grant to try to reduce teacher vacancies. Now, when we talk to people who've left Sherrard, by and large, I can tell you they don't leave because they're unhappy, they leave because of different opportunities. So we are very close to the Quad Cities, which is a great thing, it's a benefit. But it can also be a curse because somebody doesn't have to drive very far to have a significant amount more compensation, okay? You can't really make that argument, say, if you're in Alexis, because that's a pretty good drive to get to the Quad Cities. But when you're right here at Sherrard, that's a little easier leap. I talked to 2 different people from the high school that approached me this summer in public, and they thanked me for how awesome their time was at Sherrard, even though I was only here for a year. They very much enjoyed it, and they literally said it was kind of a financial decision for my family. So we have the intangibles, we have what people want, but again, that proximity to the Quad Cities, sometimes it just turns into simple economics. That grant that we got from the state of Illinois is designed to help with teacher vacancies through what they consider new and creative ways to encourage people to stay. So right now we're looking at things like, how do we pay for more education for teachers? How do we pay for more certification? How do we do things like retention bonuses, signing bonuses? But again, we have to keep in sight that this is probably a one-time payment, so we don't want to put something in place that would be recurring costs. Scheduling and transportation, our district enrollment, if you look at the back of your prospectus here, you can see that it's relatively stable, right? But again, I think we always have to be looking at that. What is the best level of staffing versus how many classes can we offer kids at the high school? What are our class sizes like at the lower levels? Transportation, we have a good transportation department. Mr. Boucher set in motion to buy 2 new school buses every year to try to rotate through the fleet. And that is after talking to some of the area superintendents, let's just say that was a phenomenal decision by Mr. Boucher and the board to make sure that we're keeping up with not getting too old of buses on the road. Energy efficiencies, when you pulled up, you saw the wind turbine spinning. Let's I just keep a positive thought. That's what I said. Let's keep going, keep going. You know, I like to hear that, you know, that womp sound. Interest rates. What goes up must come down. Okay? So right now, as Mr. Fuller Love alluded to, we made a significant amount of money because this is a side note. In the state of Illinois, all that money that was borrowed from bonds for these construction projects, when something like Winola got delayed, that $1 million that didn't go out, you can't take legally that money that you borrowed and roll it into a CD and make money off of it. The only thing that you can do is keep it, for example, in your money market, your cash flow checking account. We just simply switched a couple things over to the Illinois School District Liquid Asset Fund that is throughout the state of Illinois. So instead of making what would have been when interest rates were extremely low, these are real numbers, 0.26%. Today, when we left, I checked, it's like 5.1%. So, I mean, it's literally phenomenal. But again, what goes up must come down. Cheer for Carl building a house. And finally, levy rates. I alluded at the beginning that our tax levies have continued to drop. We're probably now at the equalization point. Tax rates cannot continue to go down and be able to keep the programs that we have here. Right? We've kind of reached that point. So I don't think EAV, the value, property valuation, can continue to rise like it has for the last 6-7 years. And finally, the thought that I always tell people to keep in mind, education is always going to be your path to a better future. Certainly our students are worth it. I remind people that I'm a walking, talking, very loud, very large example of what education can do for you, because I still see some of my former high school teachers and they scratch their head hard when they see doctor in front of my name because they remember me from high school. But this district has given a lot to me. That's probably the main reason I want to be able to give back. So thank you so much. Very much appreciate you coming tonight. The flow will be, we will adjourn in here and head to the library for the rest of the board meeting, which everyone is welcome to stay for. I'm not saying it's more attractive than the cookie table, but you are welcome. So thank you very much for coming tonight. We appreciate it.